Hello, everybody. I'm here today with one of our local authors, uh, Bradley Boucher, and we're going to talk about another turn of the wheel, The Dreamer. So, welcome, Bradley.
Thank you very much, Becky. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, well, I'm very happy to have you. You know, it's always surprising to me who we have in our midst. You know, I didn't know that you wrote books. I think that's great that you do write books, but there were a lot of questions, and some of your readers actually. I got some questions from some of your readers, so there's going to be a lot of interesting questions for you to answer today.
Well, then it'll be fun.
Oh, I think it should be. So I'm going to ask you myself though that what inspired you to start writing?
I could always tell a story. When I was 8 years old, I think I put a play together, a puppet show, and for other people to see, the kids, they would send me to different grade schools to do the little play. But I could always tell a story, but I couldn't write, and it takes a lot of concentration. But things change once I discovered I had sleep apnea. When I first used the machine, I finally got a really good night's sleep.
Wow.
And I had a dream about how can I say, in my dreams I see different worlds in my dreams, where I'm the same person but I'm different people. And some of the places that I've seen in my dreams, my house, there's different variations of it. And I remember going through it, and I remember where the forks are. I remember everything, which is kind of incredible. So I said to myself that possibly, maybe when we, after every big bang, maybe we do this all over again. So I said to myself, if I'm wrong about this, it might make for a great story.
Oh, yes.
So I started writing a story based on that idea, that philosophy. And I got to tell you, it turned out pretty interesting. Okay, how can I explain that? You may have to edit a few of these things, because I'm very absent-minded. This probably goes along with.
That's okay. It goes along with sleep apnea.
Yeah. But I was able to, because of the machine, I'm able to concentrate better.
Right.
So when I'm writing, I'm more focused. So I can actually write a full story and stick with it.
I have a question. So my question is, just out of curiosity, when you were having these dreams of being in other places, and do you remember them when you wake up?
At first, I would remember bits and pieces. I would remember usually when you wake up after a little bit of time, you forget. But yeah, I remember quite a bit. And it's quite shocking. Every time there's one spot when I leave home, whenever I drive past that area, I keep expecting to see a factory on the hill. It's orange in color. I remember walking through it when I was in this dream. I remember the smells. I remember the smell of the metal when I was collecting metal.
Wow.
It's really amazing.
Wow. It's amazing what some sleep will do for you.
Yeah, but I always had these
Right.
dreams, but and so I said to myself, well, like I said, if I'm wrong about this, it'll make for a great story.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
so did you do a lot of reading when you were young? Or?
A lot of reading.
A lot of reading.
A lot of reading. I read every kind of different type of book there is. From westerns, for example, Alistair MacLean, on and on. I mean, I read science fiction. In my later years, I read fantasy. I loved really real fantasy, like David Headings, the Manorian and the Belgorod. Wonderful, wonderful writer of fantasy. I wasn't very much. I didn't really like the Lord of the Rings. I loved the movies, but I never really liked the Lord of the Rings. But I loved this gentleman. He was a really good writer, and there's been other great fantasy writers.
Yeah.
So my book is basically science fiction, but with a touch of fantasy.
Right. So who's your influence?
For the style of writing that I'm doing, I had many different influences through the years, but one of my greatest influence was a gentleman by the name of Mika, and He was Mika Wilkari. He was Finnish. He was from Finland. He wrote a book in 1945 that really had international acclaim. It was called Shinu, the Egyptian. It was an amazing book, very epic. It's what you would call historical fiction. And the character was, needless to say, had a lot of problems in the beginning of his life, but he ended up spending time with the poor and the powerful. He ended up being a confidant of Egyptian pharaohs, and he's been, even in the Hellenistic age, this was like 1,000 years before Christ, and it was an amazing story. But he was always alone, and Shinu means he was alone. And I felt a kinship to that character. But the style of writing that this man used was a style that I really, really liked. The fact is that the writer himself, he made the main character the narrator of the story. The story is always from his point of view.
Cool.
So if something happens outside the venue of the narrator, we don't know about it.
Right.
But throughout the story, he has to work it so that he becomes aware of all these things within the story. So the main character, Shinu, he tells the story from his point of view. So, it might be different for another person, but so I try to do the same. I use myself kind of like for the character and how I would see these things. So
is that how you entered into this genre? How did you get into this specific genre of writing?
I always liked science fiction,
Right.
but I liked science fiction more of the modern day science fiction.
Right.
This story takes place in the present,
Right.
in this day and age,
Right.
and science is added to it, and because of the different universes, okay, this is some people would say this is more like a parallel universe story, but the idea is this is what's different about my book, as far as the parallel universe is concerned, and the multiple universe, so to speak, is that I see the universe as sequential, not parallel. Okay. In other words, after a Big Bang, we do this all over again.
Right.
But the future doesn't exist yet.
Right.
For the timeline.
Right.
So right through the story, we're trying to figure out who the character is. Who is he? There's a bigger mystery over all of it. And as you learn more, and you probably never know who he is. Maybe in the last book, somebody else would have to write it because I'd probably be
gone.
gone.
I get it.
But it's the type of series that I could write this book. If I lived 1,000 years, I could write this book for 1,000 years.
Wow.
Because the first 2 books, it's one universe. The next ones after that, same character, different universe, different character,
Cool.
different story.
That's cool, though. So how did you come up with the title for this book?
Another turn of the wheel?
Yeah.
Because I look at time being circular. In other words, once the wheel turns, the time begins again. Okay? So, like I said, the Big Bang,
Right.
the Earth gets created, and we get to do this all over again.
Right. Because one of your readers asked, does it maybe have some foreshadowing for the rest of the series? I guess the answer is yes.
There's a lot of foreshadowing in some of the stories.
Yeah, because you've just explained that. So but were there any, they want to know, what are the more surprising things you learned when writing the book?
The manner that you write, for example, you can say the same thing 2 to 3 different ways with the same words in the same sentence. But you have to say it in the proper way.
Right.
You have to be careful about repeating words. I mean, you say, oh, that was wonderful. He was wonderful, but he was wonderful there. You're using wonderful 3 times. You have to write in such a way that sometimes you're limited in how many different words you use. So it works like that.
I understand what you're saying because I had a very bad habit when I first started interviewing people of using the word beautiful too many times. And I would notice it when I was editing myself. And I would say, wow, I say that far too much.
So especially if you, let's say you compliment a woman,
Yeah.
you're beautiful, You don't always say she was beautiful. She was there in her attractive feet.
Yeah,
being
yeah, yeah, I
attractive.
get it. I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to switch
Yeah.
things around, but you have to make it flow.
Right.
It has to sound real.
Right. Yeah.
And I try to put a lot of myself in the book, and sometimes I'll write things that are embarrassing to me.
Well.
But when you're reading the book, it gives it a sense of legitimacy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Do you think that when you write things that might be embarrassing to you, that it's a way of coming to terms with things that, you know?
Oh yeah, it's writing this book was was better than sitting in a chair with a psychiatrist.
Right. Exactly.
You get to see quite a few things.
I get it.
You know, you get.
I get that.
It helps you make yourself more self-aware. You know, and I found that very interesting. But I enjoyed the process. The hardest thing about writing a book is the first draft. The first draft is difficult to write because you're sitting down. Sometimes I'll write 10 chapters, no problem. Then chapter 11, I want to make that transition from the second part of the story. What would be the best way?
Right.
Sometimes I'll be there a week going over it in
Yeah.
my head. People will see me and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not there. You know, I'm somewhere else.
Right.
So I'll come up with and then suddenly, perfect idea,
Yeah.
and it makes it work perfect.
Cool.
It's like I'm weaving a tapestry, and I want everything to mesh, so everything makes sense. The past and the present, whatever happened in the past, whatever I set in the present will work with what's coming in the past. Even though I am the writer and I know how the story will end, I have to get there, and it has to make sense right through.
But do you always know how it's going to end?
Yeah, pretty well. I have some basic ideas, but as I go along it, some things may change
Right.
to improve the book.
Right.
Okay?
Right. So this person has asked me, what was the most unexpected challenge you encountered while writing?
Oh, now that's a question I don't know if I can answer.
Well, you could go down to the
How about this? The process of getting an editor
Right.
to edit my book.
Right.
Oh my God. I hired two. The process that was very difficult was that my book was. I sent it to Daw Books, Penguin Books, and when they received it, they told me, we're looking forward to reading the book. Then for 9 months, I never got any answer, and I didn't know what was going on. I tried to contact them. Do you like the book? Do you want my book or not? Right? So I said, forget about that. I'm going to hire my own editor, and I went through a company called Reedsy. It's a place on the internet, and they protect you and protect the editor, and you make a contract with them, and they work on your book.
Great.
You send them the book, and there's conversations going off back and forth between the two of you, and everything is recorded. So everything we say, it's there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if there's any problems,
Yeah.
it's recorded, and there's nothing either of us can say about it. Okay, and it was difficult. It was difficult. I had to go through 2 different editors, and it was a long process. I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, this was all new for me. The only person I didn't have any trouble with was a young lady from Italy that did the interior and exterior design of my book, and she did a wonderful job.
She did a beautiful job.
She did a wonderful job.
Beautiful job. Well, how do
Her
you...
name was Natalia Giacchila, I
Right.
believe, and she did a wonderful job. I'm very proud of the work she did.
Well, now, the next book, you'll know what to expect, right?
I hope so.
So it might make that process a little easier.
I hired another gentleman for my next book. My next book is finished,
Right.
but it's not the second book of the series, it's the third.
Wow.
Okay?
So you're writing one book ahead.
What happened was that I
That's-
didn't want to write the sequel to this book until it got accepted by Amazon.
Right, I get it. Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that they went through their people and they accept it. Okay?
Yeah, I get
And
it.
but the third book it's a different universe. It's a different universe, same character, but a different story altogether.
Right.
So that will come out before the second book. I am working on the second book presently, and I've got 17 chapters done so far. But this is the first draft.
Right.
But like I was saying before, doing the second, third, fourth, fifth draft,
Forever.
I love that.
Yeah, that's
That
good.
is
That's good.
writing a book. There's nothing like writing the future drafts of the same story. You go over it and over it. It's beautiful. It's like doing a painting. When you do a painting, first you do a rough sketch. Once you have the rough sketch, you throw in the paint, and you do your job. You start painting. But as you're painting and you're using brush strokes, it's as if you're removing the mist that is hiding the work of art behind it.
Right.
So as you continue to paint, it comes out. And there's a great pleasure when the whole thing comes out and it gets very, much clearer
Vivid.
to the artist. That is the beauty of painting.
I guess it would be the same thing, though, Bradley, if you wrote a third book, you skipped the second book, that third book has to be, like, it will shape the way the second book goes, and that shapes...
Actually, there's very little...
Really?
There's very little of the third book that comes from the first two.
Really?
Yeah, it's because it's a different character, a different
Right,
universe.
right.
There's
it,
only a
yeah.
couple of little things in it that would refer to the first book,
Right.
but I don't want to give it away.
No, you can't.
I don't want to.
You shouldn't give it away.
No, I want people to enjoy the book.
How do you ensure ensure accuracy in your work?
I make accuracy of my work. As I go, I read it over and over. That when you're doing the following drafts, that's where you really work at it. You have to be careful of the different people's names because you don't want to use a different name for the same person.
Right.
That is very dangerous, and it happened to me a couple of times, and I've caught it.
Yeah.
So what I do is I have a list on a piece of paper of the different characters and who they are and the name, and I follow it. I keep an eye on it. Usually I don't have a problem. I'm usually pretty darn good with that.
Well,
but
yeah.
It's there just in case I need it.
Yeah, because this person also says you must have had to do a lot of extensive research for this novel to create this level of description for the reader. And they said, I almost felt like it was a learning experience for me as it wasn't my usual genre or subject matter.
That is one thing about me. I was trained as a math teacher.
Right.
And when I write a book, I like to teach a little bit, you could say. I like to when I go and I look at history, I like to put it out there. Like in one argument where well, you haven't seen the book yet, where we have a discussion, me and Lydia, my main character, not me, but my main character, as a discussion with Lydia about the Taj Mahal. Okay? She looks at the fact that the Taj Mahal has to do with one of the greatest romance ever. I mean, but I know who the person that built it for his wife. He wasn't that great a person.
Right.
So for me, it might be a monument to love, but the person behind it wasn't that great a person. He was he deposed his own father, and he himself was disposed by his own son. And it's. And he was bad he dealt with the Christians very harshly. Christians and different religions. In the Hindu, some of them ended up as slaves because of him. He was a very big Muslim. He was very big in that religion. But it's like everything else. There's two sides to the coin.
Of course.
Two sides to the story. And I like to have these things within the book where the main character has one point of view and the other protagonist has another point of view.
Correct. Yep.
And so there's a little bit of conflict there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
You learn through the arguments.
Yeah. Now, what do you think is unique about your writing style?
One person that read my book made a point. She made the point, and I know this lady. Okay. She's married to my cousin, Boucher. Her name is Glennis. She said, your writing style can best be described as fireside chat.
Cool.
So in other words, it's like you're sitting at a fireplace and you're telling your story to somebody that's sitting there beside you. A comfortable story, and the person reads it. I'm hoping to make a book that's 600 pages seem like less when you read it.
Right.
Comfortable.
Right.
Another person that read my book, she made the connection that even though it was big, it seemed like a smaller book, like I just said. But Oh man, I can't remember what it was we said. I'm sorry. I'm very absent-minded.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's another part you're going to have to edit out.
That's okay. I don't think so.
But it's there's all kinds of interesting points they made, and I like that. I really like feedback. You know, I learn from the feedback. I learn from everybody.
Well, this lady that sent this, that mentioned this, she said, "We felt as readers who know you that it followed your own personal speaking style and cadence."
Yeah, well, that's very important.
Right.
That was very important to me. And I can give you one other author that did that in the past, Mark Twain. When Mark Twain wrote all his books, he wrote in the style of the people of the time, how they spoke. You know, and I have a collection of his books, as a matter of fact.
And how long did this is the first one? You're almost done the third one, right?
No, just 17 chapters. I probably have another 3 or 4 months to do.
Okay.
For the second, the second book, I mean.
Yeah. But how long did it take you to write this book?
The first one took me over 3 years because I wouldn't write when I was working.
Right.
Because I can't concentrate.
Well,
I'm too
couldn't.
tired.
Yeah,
I'm too
yeah,
tired.
yeah.
But whenever I was off, I would write. And it took me 3 years to write it because I was learning how to write at the same time.
Right.
You know, you can't just willy-nilly put a book together. It's rough.
Right.
But as I wrote and I went over it, I learned how to write. The lady I told you, Glennis, I gave her a sample of my work, and she went through it, and she did a bit of editing to show me, you know, how to edit the book myself,
Right.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, she's not a professional editor, but she is a very intelligent woman, and she taught me how to learn about different things about writing. And I took what she told me, all the books I've read my entire life, and I mean I read a multitude of books in my life. I've had a lot of influence out there, but I really like Mika Waltari because I like the style that it's all coming from the point of view of the person in the story, the main character. I really like that.
Well, they say, "I loved how honest your characters were, specifically your main character, and I think that a lot of us related to him and his struggles. What made you decide to construct him so authentically and not blur his flaws?"
Because it's important. I want my character to be that he has a lot of flaws. Mika did the same thing with Shinu. I have flaws. Everybody has flaws. But the idea is that I wanted to show somebody that was pretty well at the bottom of his life, so to speak. And I wanted him to grow. Through the first book, he grows. He becomes a better person. He is a reluctant hero because at one point, before he met the people that became his friends, his close friends, and the rest of the people that joined him in his quest, before all that, his idea of just standing there playing the fiddle while Rome burned was kind of appealing to him.
Right.
Okay? So, so I like to have a character that, you know, I mean, despite all that, he's a good person. And he's a very caring person. You know what I mean? And he has to face evil, but he knows he's rather sacrifice himself and his morality than protect the people that he's trying to save. And you see that in the book, especially when he talks to Lydia, and he tells her that when it's all over, he's going to remain there. He's not going with them. But anyway, it's I'm throwing
Don't give your book away.
I don't want to give the book away,
No.
but you see that he knows that he's going to have to cross the line just to help these people.
So how did the community and the geography here play into your book?
Well, the main character comes from Ile Madame, of course. I wanted an Acadian hero. I wanted a hero, but one that was a French Acadian. And, you know, and subsequently Cajun in the United States, right? Because there's not many heroes that are Cajuns even in Hollywood. I think one of the few was, I can't remember the character's name, but he's a Cajun superhero in the the Marvel Universe, but I can't remember his name. But there is one character, but that's it. It's I wanted someone that people could look at, you know.
Yeah.
But I wanted him flawed. That was number one,
Yep.
and that he would improve.
Yeah.
In the third book, his character is completely different.
Right.
Well, this gentleman here is obviously a beta that works his way to probably, how can I say, the delta? Let's go there. He's not all the way to the other side of the line, so to speak. The next book of the series, the guy is definitely an alpha and very, very aggressive and, can I say, very paranoid, but to protect himself, so to speak.
So
He's a person that cares as well. You know?
right, of course. But how do you think your family life shaped the characters and directions of this story?
Very much things that happen, some things that you're ashamed of, something that, you know, I wanted the character to be honest.
Right.
He's a lot like me. He's a lot, which is, you know, it's sad for me to say, but it is what it is, okay? I like to think that over time things will improve even for me. And in writing the book, it has, in a sense, because, like I said, it was a good way of getting things out there.
Cleansing.
Yeah, very cleansing. That is correct. That is exactly the word I'm looking for.
Oh, that is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
You know, somebody told me one time, if you're having hard times, write them all down on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And bury them in the ground.
Well,
And have a little ceremony and say, well, there you go.
Some of the worst things that can happen to you makes the greatest stories with you. And War and Peace, for example. I think one was Anna Karenina, but I'm not sure. I've never seen it, but I've heard mention of it. Some of the worst times in life has created some of the greatest stories because people survived these bad episodes in life and has grown from it. You know, what they call it, diversity or adversity makes you stronger.
So what is your favorite genre to read?
I like to read pretty well all kinds of stuff if it's good. I don't like nonfiction. Absolutely don't want nonfiction. My life is nonfiction. I'd rather have some fantasy. It makes life easier for me. It's a lot more enjoyable. I remember when I was at CineFX and my professor, who taught art, I took art courses there. He says that, and I did a paper for him, but it was on fantasy art,
Right.
fantasy, the covers of books. You know, this is an industry to attract people's eyes. Some of the art is incredible for the fantasy books. And he said, and I mentioned in the book that you know, it's an escape. Fantasy is an escape from reality, and it makes your life, it makes you happier, kind of thing. But I have this weird thing that happened when I read this book series years ago. Like I said, Belgorod and Malorian, the two batch of series. It's the same character through about 10 books. It was written by David Eddings, and later on, I believe his wife's name was Lee Eddings, but I'm not sure. She only got mentioned in the books later on, but she was there from the very beginning.
Right.
David Eddings wrote a series, and the crazy thing happened when I read that series. It took me approximately a couple of weeks, but the story takes place and goes through a certain amount of time, you know, like several years within the story. When I was finished the series, I went downstairs. I felt I hadn't seen my aunt in a couple of years. It was the strangest feeling. I was so focused into the book that I felt that I lived longer
Right.
within the story itself.
Wow.
And it was an unusual feeling.
Here's an interesting question. If your book was adapted into a film, who would be your dream cast for the main characters?
I don't know who I'd choose for the main character. There's a few people I could think of, but I can't remember their name.
Right.
But for the female cast, Kristen Cruick from Smallville. She would have fit the part perfectly. Strong woman. When she gets upset, she's beautiful even when she gets angry. But she would have been the perfect character, and the book would work really well as a TV series rather than a movie.
Right.
And the main story of the book, would be the overlying story
Right.
for the
right.
series,
Yeah.
but I see him going from place to place collecting people.
Yeah.
You know, like he likes to collect people that are in trouble, people that have went through hell, but they've survived. And that's what he's looking for, a survivor. He wants people that are intelligent, but he wants people that have faced adversity and survive. He wants the best so that when I don't like telling giving the story away.
Don't give too much away.
The idea is that that part of the story, you'd have the main story over, like I said, overhanging the old storyline, but you'd have the individual stories where he's going around picking the people he considers survivors to become part of his group to help him in his quest.
Now, this reader says not to throw any spoilers or anything, but finding treasure off Green Island, should we grab our scuba gear?
The story I wrote in the book about Green Island, it's been going around for years. Now, the story about the character's grandmother saying she remembered her grandmother and her father came over and dropped gold into her apron. That story was told to me by my grandmother.
Right.
She said that her grandmother, I think it was a grandmother or mother, she was there with the apron. The grandmother was there with the apron, and the gold was actually put in the urn. I don't know where he got the gold.
Right.
He probably got it because he was one of those people, the people you call Iron Men and wooden ships.
Yeah.
These were the people that went traveled all around the world.
Right.
And they were paid with gold sovereigns in some of those instances. But she told me that this really happened. So I said to myself, I'm going to use that in the story.
Sure.
And I wanted to put different character, and I like the idea of the prince. I like that.
So, who is your favorite or least? Well, who is your least favorite character in your book? Do you have a least favorite character?
Well, even the bad guys are interesting. You know what I mean?
So you like them all?
I like my characters, but some bad characters have to be bad.
Right. Well, that's
You
right.
know, but I mean, what's Batman if he doesn't have bad villains to deal with, right?
Of course.
But I don't know. I kind of like most of them. Everybody has their strengths, their weakness. You know. So when you say is there a character you don't like, if I didn't like him, he wouldn't be in the book at all.
Exactly. That makes sense. What you just said.
He has to fit his role, even if it's a bad guy.
Right. So when can people expect? What can people expect in the next book?
The next book, I don't know when it'll be coming out, because I'm working on the third book right now.
Right.
The third book is finished.
Right.
I have to go through the process with an editor.
And you're not going to release the third book until you release the second one, correct?
Yeah, because I can't afford it. I mean,
it's too expensive.
I'm $5,000 in the hole right now on the
It
first
costs so
book.
much money, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's because I'm doing it on my own, and the editor.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I'll never make that money back. I mean, I'd have to be world famous to make up the money.
Well, you never know, Bradley. You could become world famous.
I'd have to sell roughly about 1,500 books
Wow.
to get even with what I spent on the book. But it's I call it a very expensive hobby, but it's a labor of love. I mean, it was wonderful writing this. I mean, it's the best thing I ever did in my life, I think, And the second book is going to be very interesting. And the title gives it a little bit away, I suppose. It's called Another Turn of the Wheel. Okay, the past is prologue.
Oh.
So whoever read the end of the book knows that he was heading for a certain area in time, but
in the past.
in the future.
Oh, in the future. Oh.
Okay, at the end of the book, he was trying.
Okay, I see. I get it.
Because he was trying to get past where bad things have happened.
Oh.
I'm giving too much away with the story. I hate that.
Don't say much more.
But he ends up back in the past.
Cool.
So I'll tell you. At least I'll tell you that.
Okay.
The book starts off, and it's 1947 Chicago.
Cool.
So he has to find his way back home, so to speak.
Well, we're going to wait till the next one comes out. We're going to have you back again.
That'll
There'll
be
be all
wonderful.
kinds of more interesting questions.
Yeah, probably for the third book will be a different character altogether.
Well,
I might have a different people that want to read that one, but
That's quite all right.
every character is going to be different. I also plan to write in the future. I don't mind telling you right now. I don't know when that's going to happen because this series will be going. I'll try to write it on the side if I can. I want to write a romance where the main protagonist, of course, exists. The woman, this woman, Lydia, who is a newspaper reporter, is trying to figure out who the man behind the curtain is.
Right. Well, cool.
Okay.
Mystery almost.
Yeah, and so hopefully it'll end up as a romance,
Cool.
you know,
Very cool.
between the two of them. But she's trying to find out who he is. So I thought that would be a great idea for a story,
It is.
because he realizes she's looking for him. So it's kind of funny what he does. So I'm not going to say anymore.
No. Stay.
But that's for the future.
Keep that. Anyway, thank you for coming, Bradley.
You're very welcome.
It's great to have you. Come back anytime.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.